Welcome to the SIP, the Solstice Innovations podcast. In each episode, we chat with industry experts and innovators in insurance and insurtech. Join us for insights on trends, technologies, and the stories driving our industry forward. Let's sip on knowledge together at the SIP. Hi, I'm John Umstead with Solstice Innovations. In this episode of the SIP, our guest is Lisa Miller of Lisa Miller and Associates. Well, Lisa Miller, welcome to the SIP. I appreciate you taking some time to be here with us.
I am honored and always love to share thoughts and ideas about how to make this industry better.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. But before we do, can you give us a little bit about your background and how things have evolved into you launching? I know it's not a new launch, but you did launch Lisa Miller and Associates. So what was that path like? How'd you get there?
I actually am 65 years old, so I have about 40 years in the business on and off. I started back in the late 80s, mid to late 80s in the insurance regulatory arena.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with the then insurance commissioner and did their consumer outreach programs. We traveled to speak with senior citizens and retirees and others because insurance is so intimidating, auto insurance and the many facets of that, homeowners coverage, life insurance, health insurance. And from there, I spent time in the aftermath of Hurricane Andrew. And that was, of course, the 1993, 92, 93. And that was probably the most eye-opening experience I've ever had. Just think about it. There were no cell phones. There were no having electronic documents. And we flew down to Miami from our Tallahassee offices. Every week there was a team of us that went down to help consumers in enormous tents that was so hot down there. I'll just never forget it. It was in August. And, you just sat with people who had shreds of paper trying to figure out what they had in coverage and do what we could. And that was at a time when the insurance commissioner forced the top 10 insurance company CEOs, and I say forced, to put them on a Black Hawk helicopter and make them fly over that damage. Mm-hmm. And that was all it took. I mean, these companies were writing checks as fast as they could because it was devastating. And then after that, I went to work in the private sector for about 10 years, till about the beginning of 2003. And one of the things I did when I went back to the insurance commissioner and said, I really am tired of these private sector jobs are killing me. I was traveling. I looked awful. He said, yeah, you look like hell. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
So that was Kevin McCarty at the time, insurance commissioner Kevin McCarty, one of the greatest commissioners of our state here in Florida. And I came in as his deputy commissioner. And then lo and behold, a year later, the 4 or 5 storms that hit Florida back to back in 04 and 05. And so here we go again. And this time it was better than 1993. We had satellite phones. We were just beginning, email and that type of thing. So it was better. And a million claims, companies going out of business. It was crazy. And then after I left regulation in 2007, I opened my own consulting firm, and that's been a great joy. I have the privilege of consulting we have about 8 million property insurance policies in Florida, and I consult with companies that write about 3 million of those. And when I say consult, I help them understand the regulatory environment. The media is not kind to insurance companies. I did a podcast earlier today, and we were talking about how insurance companies in Florida are accused of not paying their claims because there's data out there that says that over 50% of Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton claims are unpaid. Well, they're not paid because most of them are flood insurance. That little detail that gets left out of the newspaper stories. And so we're doing all we can as a team of subject matter experts. I had some great ones on the podcast this morning. I have my Florida Insurance Roundup, a little plug for that. We'll talk about that at the end of the show and maybe put something in your show notes about our podcast.
Sure. Absolutely.
And, both of these experts, one a seasoned insurance agent, one a seasoned insurance claims executive, said, it's not only not having flood insurance, but, people are changing their coverage. They're buying actual cash value or they're skinnying down their coverage. Look at Tropicana Field in Florida, big, huge baseball stadium. Hurricane Helene comes through. They had just reduced their roof coverage and that roof is gone. And
Uh-huh.
so they just didn't have enough coverage because they were trying to save in premiums. So look no further than that. And the rest is history. I've got these 10 great insurance companies. I do work in emergency management. Our incredible emergency manager, Kevin Guthrie, who runs our state division of emergency management. And there's a nexus between property insurance and emergency management, as well know, when federal funds come down and make communities more resilient, more attractive to the property insurance companies. And I could go on forever about that. So to say that I have a great time and I wake up every morning and enjoy talking to my clients and know that they're doing the right thing, and sure, they make mistakes as insurance companies. I speak in the legislature and I say that often, there's no perfect insurance company, and the CEOs will tell you that.
We're all
But
human.
99% of the time, if you look at the complaint ratios that go to the Department of Financial Services, it's like less than half a percent of people that are not happy. And so we just need to focus on that. And we are there on people's worst day.
Yeah.
And I believe I wear the flag, of believing that flood insurance is great, homeowners insurance is great, and your insurance agent is your first line of defense, and make sure you got what you need. So that's where I come from.
Happy customers don't make the headlines, right? So
They really don't. What a
yep.
shame.
So, you've kind of hinted around at this a little bit, but you're in Florida. What is it about the Florida insurance market that is so unique and perhaps volatile? And what lessons should perhaps the rest of the country be paying attention to from the Florida market?
I mean, we look like a barrier island when you look at the maps, big, Google Earth, etc. We just look like a barrier island sitting in the middle of nowhere. And that's what the reinsurance people in Bermuda and London see. People in Key West, Monroe County are just shocked that the reinsurance community just doesn't want to shower them with reinsurance support. And they don't, because they are really sticking out in the middle of the ocean, and we are the highest. The terminology is the highest. I think it's peak cat risk, peak catastrophe risk of anywhere in the world. Not tsunamis, not earthquakes, Florida.
Uh-huh.
And that's what makes us unique. And we have a model in Florida where, you think about California, the wildfires. So let's say they have 15 insurance companies that write 90% of their business. We have 45 that write 90% of our business. And we, back after Hurricane Andrew, decided to spread our risk. We only had about 8 insurance companies that wrote all of our insurance companies back in Hurricane Andrew. So we spread our risk among these 45 companies, and some companies write as many as 700,000 policies, and some write as small as 50,000 policies. But that's our model. And for the most part, if we hadn't had some of the greedy trial lawyers and some of the other third parties that were really taking advantage of the system back in, 2019, 20, and 21, we would be even stronger today. But of course, the legislature and the governor got sick of those third parties taking advantage and changed our laws, and things are so much better here in 24 and 25, and we're really in a good spot. But we're an anomaly. Florida is an anomaly, and it's not for the faint of heart. To be an insurance executive in this state, got to have tough skin, got to keep telling your story, got to provide excellent customer service when it comes claim time, have a product that's valuable that insurance agents can sell and want to sell. And we're in a pretty good place here in 2005, which is great for consumers. The market's very competitive. At any given week, I'm talking to 10 or 15 insurance agents who are really on the front lines. I mean, they're the ones writing these products. And 3 or 4 years ago, I'd be talking to them, and you can hear their like team members crying in the background with customers on the phone who are saying, I'm going to lose my home. I can't afford this insurance. Well, they couldn't afford their insurance because the rates were through the roof, because we're the highest litigation rate in the country. 75%, of all litigation was in Florida, yet we had 8% of all those claims in Florida across the country. Now I talk to agents and they're just giddy. I mean, they got markets they could write. There's competition. The rates are coming down. I had Representative Mike Caruso, incredible member of the House of Representatives. He follows our work. And he sent me a note and said their condo association policy dropped $10,000 from last year to this year. Pretty cool. um, you know, things are better. And we're just different here in Florida. And there's companies trying to start. They got to raise 30 million to start an insurance company, and they need more than that, but that's pretty much the minimum before a regulator will talk to them. So it's hard, but once you're in and you can weather the storms and sell a good product and provide great customer service, you're in it.
Yeah, I just today I saw an article from the Insurance Journal that a couple more companies are coming into Florida, into the market right now. So, which kind of is a nice segue for our next question. You've been a champion for legislative reform, and public-private partnerships. What recent legislation has occurred, if any, has occurred to sort of enable some of these changes, and or is there any legislation coming up that you can talk about that you really think is going to be impactful?
The governor's been pretty incredible in our state. He held a press conference in 2022 and said, "I am sick of the billboard lawyers, sick of them. And it's just out of control." And I remember talking to claims executives when things were really bad. I would call my claim vice presidents of claims across my 10 companies every Monday morning, standing call. How many lawsuits did you get in today? We got 500 in today over the weekend. We got 1,000. Da, 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 da. It was crazy numbers. And so basically the single biggest change was that they stopped the one-way attorney's fees. And how that worked was, if you were an insurance company and you were being sued, whether you won or lost, you paid those attorney's fees. Insane. I mean, like, if I sue my hairdresser for turning my hair green, I got to pay my own attorney's fees, And
Yeah.
so that was the single biggest. It took away the goodie, for people. You would listen to a telephone line in 2020, 19, and I'd go listen to claims phone lines. And they would say to the customer, "We have Florida's former deputy insurance commissioner on our call today." Sometimes the customer or the lawyer would hang up because he's about to file a fraudulent claim. But most of them were very gracious. She likes to listen to our calls. You have to disclose that I was on the call. And you just don't hear some of the shenanigans that you would hear on those phone lines back in 2020 and 21. So that was the single biggest change. And the other side, I say the other side affectionately. I have friends that are trial lawyers, and public adjusters, but they would say this is the worst thing that ever happened to consumers, and I would say this is the best thing that ever happened to consumers, because it restored this market to its vibrancy. Competition, new companies, rates are coming down. Tim Serio, that runs Citizens Property Insurance, his board meeting was last week. I encourage you to look at his report and what he talked about. It's out there on the web, and he just continues to tout that the reforms have made this market better. He's gotten rid of 500,000 policies, which we want him to get rid of every one of them if he could. And so it's really a good time in our business for consumers.
And again, that's a great segue into the next question. There's, for any of our Broadway fans that might be listening in, the musical Hamilton, there's a song in there all about being in the room where it happens, and you're in the room where it happens, right? So do you see any challenges with representing your clients, as well as pushing for systemic change, or do you see those really as being one and the same?
We had a terrible threat this past session, 2025 session that just ended in May. One of the legislators, who's a great friend of mine, we just don't agree. She pushed for an attorney fee bill that she said wasn't the one-way attorney's fees, but it really was. It was just a different wording, and it would have restored the one-way attorney fee, or the attorney fee goodie, if you will. And that would have undone all these great, momentum of this insurance market. And they pulled out every trick in the book, up to and including insinuating that insurance company executives were funneling billions of dollars to investors, to which I would say, if they were doing that, why aren't there 300 companies instead of 45 writing this coverage? Not many people can answer that question, because their answer is they're not funneling billions of dollars. And in fact, the insurance commissioner, out of 100 pennies in a dollar, he knows where every penny is. And so, they used every single reason that these insurance companies are greedy and were asking for these reforms when they were swindling billions of dollars. I mean, the rhetoric was unbelievable. And thank God the Senate, because it's a bicameral legislature, the House and Senate have to agree. And the House didn't agree with the Senate. I mean, the Senate didn't agree with the House. And so, as they say in the South, the House's dog didn't hunt. And so the Senate, just said, we just need to continue to watch these reforms work. And, there's still plenty of way. You can still hire a lawyer. You just got to pay your own fees. You can still, in fact, lawsuits are still alive and well. If you look at citizens' lawsuits, they're still coming in. And people are still willing to roll the dice that, they can get more money, and it's a cost benefit for them to pay a lawyer and get more money in a claim if they hire a lawyer. I recommend to consumers, please let your insurance company work this out first. You can always hire a lawyer, but don't hire it the first call that you make. That's just insane. Yeah. So yes, we've got challenges, but as these rates continue to come down, dozens of companies have filed for rate decreases or even no increase, and that was testified in the citizens meeting. The threat of that will slowly slip away because the proof is in the pudding, and we'll see what's going on.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. So another interesting topic, everyone always wants to talk about AI. So I wanted to get an AI question or two out there to you. So I'll start with just kind of an anecdotal story. So I was in Louisiana in February visiting with some agents, and one of them was lamenting about I won't name the insurance company, but a particular one that uses a lot of AI to do some pretty serious underwriting. And they were talking about a case where a policy was denied, or a would-be policyholder was denied a policy because in the photos there was a picture of a little kiddie pool in the backyard, and the engine that they were using said, "There's a pool in the backyard. There's no fence in the backyard, so therefore you're not going to get this policy." Mm-hmm. And that's probably kind of one of the extreme stories, but it does beg the question: what do we do with AI? How far do we take it now? And how do regulators come into play with the use of AI? Where do you see it going?
It's not as I don't necessarily think it's the regulators. I think it's the insurance agents. There's always going to be an insurance agent to get to that underwriter at the company and say, "There's no pool. It's a kiddie pool," that kind of thing. And we rely on our agents to help our companies understand the risk that they're placing on the books that they're about to absorb. So, there was a bill this past year to heavily regulate the use of AI. But I want you to think about this. When you look at a health insurance bill, explanation of benefits, there's no 1-800 number for the insurance company for you to call and talk to them about it. They typically come from the provider, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at a communication from a property insurance company, the name of the adjuster's on there, the phone number's on there. You can get right to the company and talk about your claim. Health insurance is different. And so really the rub that I hear is that on the health insurance side, the AI is not as efficient as it should be, but it's very efficient on the property side. There was a big tech conference in New York, claims tech conference in New York, and there was a platform there that allowed for AI to write correspondence. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm a great writer, but ChatGPT is better than I am. I mean, just really unbelievable what they come up with. It's like having an executive assistant drafting something for me, and then I'll edit it. But man, some of these AI programs are pretty good. So if we can make our communication clearer and more efficient through an AI platform, why not? And there was another platform at this conference where these chatbot lines could take thousands of claims at one time versus the phone queue. People get upset when they have to wait in a phone queue, particularly after a disaster, and this would take all that away. So just those two improvements, AI, I think, is pretty terrific.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of good applications of it in the insurance world and in life in general. But you do have to use some caution. Just a couple more questions for you. So one is just you know, let's say I'm a burgeoning leader in insurance, or I want to be a leader in insurance, but I also want to be really impactful in making change to the industry, positive change to the industry. Do you have any advice that you would give?
I would. I often say to the insurance agents that are writing this business, pick 10% of the policies that you write and go see the customer. Novel idea. You know, they're all so busy and they're writing it as fast as they can, but get in your car and map out, you know, 15 claims for the week, policies for the week, and go look at the risk yourself and go introduce, you're talking to your customer on the phone and ask your customer, can we go have a cup of coffee? I mean, why not?
Yeah,
And same, like I made a suggestion to a big company that writes commercial residential, the big high-rise condos and apartments. And I said, look, you've got 2,000 policies, right? Which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 2,000 multi-family policies. Could be, you know, hundreds of people affected
yeah.
with this particular master policy. I said, pick 100 of them and tell your entire executive team to pick the 10 they want and go see the boards of directors of those. I don't care. All the AI in the world does not substitute for that. All the phone calls and the Zoom calls and the Teams calls does not substitute for that.
There's nothing like a face to face.
There
It
is
it
not.
just
So
can't be
that's
beat. Not with today's technology. So
right. Right.
yeah, great advice. Appreciate that. So another question for you. It's not actually a question. It's let's plug your podcast. So
Sure.
can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Your listeners can go to www.lisamillerassociates with an S on the end.com, www.lisamillerassociates.com, and just pull the pull down menu and you'll see newsletters and podcasts. And we've done about 60. Our last one, as early as this morning, like I said, was talking about claims. We've done podcast on innovative building products. It's called No More Sticks. I don't know about you, but as I drive through the state of Florida and it's nothing but plywood and 2x4s, I think we need to rethink that because Mother Nature doesn't treat plywood and 2x4s very kindly. I don't care how resistant people say it is. There's nothing like having innovative products like there's one called Maxtera. It doesn't burn. Imagine if that was a part of the homes in Los Angeles. It's
Mm-hmm.
non-combustible. It's made of magnesium. There's another product out there that makes steel trusses, not 2x4 trusses. I mean, we've got to change the way we build the structures. And so I am very much into the resilient products and ways that we can make our structures more resilient against Mother Nature. It's just been a great ride, and we have great podcast guests and loyal followers that listen to us all over the world. And from reinsurers and other insurance companies, I was telling someone the other day, I got an email from somebody in Holland that was listening to our flood podcast because, you know, they're the water experts of the world. So just take a listen, pick one, listen to it. They're in 20 minutes or so, because after that you lose, you're out of, well, if you're commuting in Miami, you need that podcast to be on my, you know, for an hour. You know, if you're commuting in Northern Florida, it's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And enjoy your time listening to what we have to say. So thank you for that plug.
Yeah, yeah. I've listened to a couple of episodes myself, mostly in prep for today, for meeting with you, and they are excellent. And I would encourage everyone to go out and take a listen. So thanks for sharing.
Sure, sure.
All right, Lisa. I think that just about wraps things up. But before we go, I'd just like to ask if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered yet.
There's one thing, and
Okay.
I've been singing this for many seasons now, and that's for those of you that have a homeowner's insurance policy. I'd like you to go pull it out of your drawer, pull it on your phone, and there's a line that says coverage A or dwelling, structure coverage or whatever they call it, you know, depending on your company. And if it says $400,000, I want you to print a copy of that and walk into a contractor's office and pay them $100 and ask them to go by your house and see if you can rebuild your house for $400,000.
Great advice. Great advice. The
That's it.
answer's probably going to be no, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. think the majority of people pay enough attention to what's actually in their insurance policies,
They really don't.
regardless of line. So,
But that's an easy one that we can all do.
yeah, so for sure. Well, Lisa Miller and Associates, really appreciate you sitting down and being with us on the SIP. Thanks so much for your time.
All right, John, it's been a pleasure. And let's hope this storm season is unremarkable. How about
And
that?
kind to everyone. Yeah.
Yes. Thanks
All right.
again. Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye-bye.